it's an obvious question. If you got it on Metro North, if there's community transmission, how vulnerable is public transit?
Yeah, well, you would have known by now, right? Because the manifestation period is about a couple of weeks. So if people had gotten it next to him in that situation, you would be seeing the cases. Now, Westchester is interesting, and we're keeping an eye on it because it was one individual who then attended a number of large gatherings, and that's where you're seeing the spread. And that's what we have to keep in mind. It's these large gatherings where you can expose a number of people in a very short period of time, and then it's like dominoes, right? Then the tree continues to expand with branches. And that's what we're seeing in Westchester. You know, we're up to about 70 cases in Westchester now. New York City, we only have 11. So you really see what can happen with those large gatherings and the cluster, and that's what we have to focus on.
And that's why Amtrak suspended service. It just suspended service between D.C. and New York. But it was the Acela service between D.C. and New York that they're not going to start up again until May. Let me ask you about the testing. Why are we starting the testing now, Governor? Because we've known this now for, about 2 months. I know there was an issue with the CDC sending the states tests and then saying, wait, don't take the tests yet, they're defective. Do you have effective tests now? Are you limited on the number of tests that you have?
Look, testing is limited, and this is, I think, Maria, one of the main issues we have both in reality and in perception. When you wonder why people are so anxious and the fear, it's because the information they're getting tends to change and they're getting mixed messages. And probably the single most important thing we can do substantively now is testing. And it hasn't been done well. I believe the CDC was caught flat-footed. We knew this was coming. We were watching China. You would have to be in denial if you didn't think what was happening in China was going to wind up here. CDC was not ready when it started. Number two, CDC handcuffed the states. I needed their approval to do my own testing. We have very sophisticated labs, governmental labs in this state. They didn't approve the New York labs to test for a period of time. It then even got larger, and now we don't have the ability to do it, to manage the flow in our state lab. We want to use private labs who can do automated testing, which exponentially increases the number of tests. We can't get CDC to approve the automated testing. And then to compound this issue, their messages are all over the place, frankly. You have the President of the United States stand up and say, anybody who wants a test can have a test. And then you have the Vice President stand up and say, we don't have the capacity to test. And we don't have the capacity to test. We can't say to people in this country or in this state, anyone who wants a test